Awesome, folks. It is great to be back here hosting this show. And I get to have join me tonight one of my favorite friends from LinkedIn. We go way back, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit tonight. But Falguni, I am so thankful for you and glad to have you on the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for this opportunity, Steve. It's always great to connect with you again and talk to you live. So this is fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome. So there's no preset structure to this conversation tonight. So, folks, if you've got questions, put them in the comments. Otherwise, Falguni and I can talk for hours, and we have. So, we are just going to have a kind of a normal conversation, and you'll get to listen in and hear things about Falguni and maybe things about me. But welcome to the show, all the audience. And Falguni, let me start off by saying, do you remember how we connected?
Yes, very vividly. May I share that?
Yes, yeah. Tell the story.
Okay. Okay,
I'm an
so
old man. I forget the story.
it is really interesting. And hi, everybody that's been saying hi. Hi, Karen. Hi, Kenyatta. Hi, Sarah. Everybody, thank you so much for joining. And so here we go with the story of how Falguni and Steve met. So Laila was putting together a series of, she was having this program where she was getting together all the coaches. Then she was selecting some people from LinkedIn that she thought would be benefiting from having interacting and working with the set of coaches, right? So Steve goes like, "Yeah, Falguni, go pick her up, and Laila, you should choose her." And I'm like, Steve. And then I remember Steve sharing this very, very personal, very beautiful, very authentic and vulnerable story about himself. And I remember him from back then. So I had this massive respect for this guy. And I suddenly see him like, saying, yes, go pick Falguni and things like that. I'm like, Steve, that is just so sweet. Do you remember that, Steve? We had this
I
conversation, and I reminded you that it just meant so much coming from you, just because I have this respect for you, because you come across as somebody who's so open. Like I don't think there's nothing about you nobody knows. It's just so open book.
That's true.
Yeah, and it is just the ability. It's a skill, my friend. Nobody can be that candid and can be that vulnerable. It requires strength. So I remember you from there, and that's my best memory of you.
Thank you. Now that you bring that up, I certainly remember that time when they were doing that contest and they were going to pick like 5 people.
Yes.
And immediately when I saw that post, I thought of you because you had, I thought, all the right talents that they were looking for to take advantage of that program and be able to use it. So, I just kind of pumped you up there and said, hey, pick this girl. And fortunately they did. And from there, we've continued to develop a friendship. As many people probably know, we're UMAP coaches. We went through the UMAP training under Christian Sherry together. We kind of used each other in the training part of that to test things out. And then we also connected back up again under Lila's Say Things Better mastermind.
Yes.
And so, with Falguni, it's like, okay, what's the next thing we can learn together? And we're always learning things. So that's the question for you. What's the next thing we should learn together?
All right. So right now, I am really wanting to learn how to get started and how to get the podcast thing right, my friend. I am looking forward to getting that skill, honed up, because I am ready to launch. I am ready to have this kind of conversations. We have had so many when we realized we spoke for an hour or two and then realized, oh, we should have recorded. Remember?
Yeah.
I want to be able to do that in a much structured manner, and I want to get that out. So that's the next thing that I am having on my list.
Excellent, excellent. Have you connected with anybody that can help you with that?
I did. I enrolled for the Mark Metry program, and I'm kind of talking and working with him on that one.
Okay, great. Another excellent person is Junaid Ahmad.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if you're connected with them, but I've been connected
yeah.
with
I
them.
was on his Hacks and Hobbies show.
But yes, correct. And he does a lot on how to build a studio, how to do podcasting. He's a great expert in that. So, Falguni, let's talk a little bit about what it is like to be a UMAP coach, because we always have good stories
All
to
the
share.
wonderful topics. Yes, exactly. So I think before even becoming a UMAP coach, I think the journey that brought us to that point is something that is worth talking about and sharing with everybody, right? So I remember being in that program and then having met Christine and having gone through the UMAP myself, having had the experience with her. It was an eye-opening thing. We talk about ourselves and we are aware, and self-awareness is where is my jam. I absolutely um, believe in the power of self-awareness. I believe that is the foundation of our happiness, of our success. Everything in life, it's very foundational, and UMAP had just triggered exactly that point for me. Like, understanding what my strengths were, what my values were, and how, and my skills, and how all of that came together in a beautiful way, which will complement each other and make an overall, like, personality that can be so clear for people to understand me holistically, who I am, not just look at me in one dimension, right? Look at us in because as individuals, we are all multidimensional. We have multiple areas and facets of our life that, we sometimes, with friends, we tend to behave in a certain way, talk in a certain way, and, with our colleagues, we talk in a certain way, and so on. But fundamentally, we are the same individual. Fundamentally, we are the same human being, and, we have that same set of values, same set of strengths that we bring to the table in across all these conversations, right? So it's just that
Mhm.
understanding who we are fundamentally is something that do we have somebody else join as well?
I'm sorry, what?
Do we have somebody else join as well? I was hearing some feedback.
No, not unless you're hearing my noisy family upstairs.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So yeah, so that is what I was. That's what I got into. The fundamental of understanding who we are, the basic composition of us, and then it's all the layering on the top when we are in those social situations or in personal situations, relationships, and all of that. But so that is where I got to know who I was and what I was capable of, because we always also have that imposter syndrome. We all have gone through that at some degree or the other, some point in our life. We all think that we are good for nothing, we don't have any skill, we have done nothing. And I absolutely now believe that, if anybody can inspire us, it is our own self, our own backstory, the one that we were talking about, the victory story, as I call it, right? It is just that, looking back at our own self and how our life has been and how we have kind of gone through and grown through things is really what makes us who we are. So getting that understanding of fundamentally who we are with the UMAP program, and then now I've designed a methodology that is going to take it even further than that. So that has been UMAP has been a solid foundation in many senses for me. So, and I'm glad to have made such good friends such as you in this UMAP program, and having had connections with you from there, it's just been amazing.
So what's one key insight that you've got from going through the UMAP process about yourself?
The key insight, so I never thought of connectedness to be a strength. Frankly, I knew about positivity, I knew about adaptability, all of this to be strengths, I knew that. But for me, and connectedness is my number one strength, by the way, and I was unaware of that completely. So that was my biggest aha moment right there. I was not knowing that, being able to look at the big picture and to be able to then drill down to the details, or understanding the cause and effect of everything, understanding how we are all connected. I never saw that as a strength, even though I always lived by it. I always knew it, but I didn't think of it as a strength. Now, that unawareness of such a solid strength of mine really kept me underperforming, really didn't let me shine, because there were so many places where I could have used it knowingly and done a better job at. So now my life is changed after that. After having this awareness, now it's different. It's not the same anymore.
Definitely, I can concur with you on that. I know in going into the program, I was thinking this will be a great way to bring about leadership development. And it is a great process for that very thing. The thing I didn't realize until having gone through it is the number of insights I've been able to gain in my own life and my personal relationships with people. For example, all marriages have their moments and tension points. And between my wife and I am a social kind of guy. Let's get out, let's network, let's have a good time. She is a very reserved person who would rather hide away. And I'm always trying to drag her out. And she's always frustrated with me for trying to drag her out. And once I went through my UMAP and then went through her UMAP and saw that, yes, she is very much a thinker-doer. She has empathy as one of her strengths. That being around people isn't necessarily something she wants to do, where for me, it is. And so now, coming to that realization, I can say to her, all right, honey, I'm going to go do my thing. You go do your thing. I've stopped trying to pull her out with me and causing her consternation and frustration. So it's improved our relationship from that standpoint.
Yes, I love that. I think that's spot on, because once we gain awareness about who we are, Steve, we are all automatically become a little bit more sensitive towards how the other person may be wired, because you know how you are wired. So, and then you gain that empathy, and plus having empathy as your basic value or your strength is definitely a plus in terms of relationships, in terms of understanding and being compassionate towards our partner, any relationship for that matter, right? Even at work or at home, we just tend to understand that people can be wired differently, and it's okay. It's really okay, and to accept, because everybody has some strength or the other, and I look at it now as complementing strengths instead of conflicting strengths. You see that? So it's just about understanding how we can complement each other and make it a better experience for both of us, because we cannot be doing what we cannot be doing, and similarly for the others, if they are wired in a certain way, if they cannot see the way we see things, it's okay. We can give them, the perspective that we have, and we can learn from them, and it can be a win-win. So I think it's about setting it right, understanding what we can gain positively out of the interaction, any interaction. It's just going to be helpful for us to grow if that's the mindset we have, if that is how we approach things, right? So one thing is knowing, and the other thing is wanting to understand and wanting to work with things. Those are two different things, you see, because there are people that this is how I am, I know who I am, so this is how it will be. But there are others that are wanting to then take it above and beyond and work with them in a certain way. So that is why having a different set of strengths with our partners may sometimes be a positive thing instead of a negative thing. And my husband and I are very different, but now we have found out a really good balance as to how we can help each other out, and there are certain things that now we are able to divide, like this is where your strength is, you figure this out, I figure this out. What a win, right? We don't need to be doing everything at once. So yeah.
definitely.
Self-awareness is power, Kenyatta. That's absolutely right. I'm just seeing the message from Kenyatta.
Yeah, so feel free to call those out as they come in.
Yes.
Uh, the other aspect of the process that I think had an impact on my life is the values
Oh, yeah.
section.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we often talk about we have values, but we don't often think about what those values are.
Mm-hmm.
We may just naturally exhibit certain values, but going through the discipline and the process of UMAP and really looking at those values helps one become more aware of what are some of the things that really drive us as an individual. And I know with my clients, when I coach them, I try and get them down to 2 values, to take the 10 that we generally use in the UMAP process and get them down to 2, because I think when you can get down to 2, those are truly going to be the ones that drive you.
Mm-hmm.
So for like me, my top 2 are faith and service.
Mm-hmm.
Faith in the sense that I believe in other people and their ability to be successful, and service from the standpoint that I'm willing to help people achieve that success in any way I can. What about you? What did you learn through the values process?
So for me, values are something that is like an underlying blanket. That's who we are. That's the net, that binds us together as a human, as a society, and so on. So for me, making a difference is a big value for me. Empathy is another. I am a people's person. You know that. My all my strengths are relating strengths. The top five ones, except for one, strategic. So other than that, all of my strengths are people related strengths, and so for me it is about underst- I am a people's person, so I like to connect with people and all of that, but it's not just at the level of connecting, but at the level of impacting, which taking it a step further, right? Understanding, how can I make a difference, how can I positively create a ripple, make an impact, provide a different perspective, share some of my experience, learn somehow or the other. It is very important for me to build a rapport, and also to really understand how I can impact their life, how I can make it better than how I have found them, whoever it is. And in whichever scenario that is, right? This is again, sans, you know, professional scenario or personal relationships or whatever. Every relationship, this is how I like to encounter. So I think living those values, we are invariably, unknowingly, knowingly living our values, because that's who we are fundamentally, right?
Correct.
So, so it's fun. All I want to say, Steve, is that it is fun to live a life with self-awareness, knowing what you're, because you're living it anyway. You're going to live through it anyway, knowingly or unknowingly. How fun it is to live a life knowingly. You know what I mean? It's just that much of fun when we are understanding and knowing why we are connecting, or why is it what we are doing, or what is it exactly that we are going to be able to bring to the table. I mean, it's amazing when we have that clarity. It just improves everything around us, because now people are already knowing what to expect from us. So the burden of expectations is also reduced, according to me. Do you see that?
Yes, I see that. Now, both of us have been in leadership roles,
Yep.
managing teams, working with people.
Uh-huh.
One of the things that often we emphasize from the UMAP standpoint is the value of strengths and understanding what team members, their different strengths are, so that they can complement one another, like you're talking about. But I've also begun to see a greater appreciation of values,
Mm-hmm.
because corporate culture often stems from the values projected from leadership to the teams. And just like managers and leaders are often uh, don't know the strengths of their team, they also don't necessarily know the values of their team. And that can lead to some challenging issues. One of the clients that I've worked with who was very happy in his job and what he was doing, but he was looking for a new job. And when it came down to why, it's because he valued recognition and the company wasn't honoring that value. They didn't do anything to really recognize people. So he felt like there was a gap or something missing. And that caused him to say, hey, I need to find a different place. And he didn't really know what that hole was until looking at the values and recognizing, yeah, here's one of his very important values. And the question we always ask clients is, do you feel like your workplace is honoring those values? And he had to say no. So how have you experienced that with your workplace and teams?
Yes, very, very important. So I think that there is culture at an organizational level, right? So that is something that is definitely existing, and that broadly applies to everybody in the organization. But I think there is something called department culture, and then the team culture as well as um, team values. That is something that is driven by the team leader, right, or the manager, whoever that is. So now, that person that you were just giving an example about, right? If the immediate impact that we on a day-to-day level speak about is the impact that our immediate manager has on us, or we as a manager have on our team, right? So now, if we each person can make an impact, right? Now we cannot go about and change the culture of the entire organization. Well, we can create ripples for sure, so I'm not denying that fact, but instantly speaking, immediately speaking, I think we can impact, and very solidly so, impact our team, right? And so that with the but for that we need to understand what our values are, and also have the understanding or that leadership quality of seeing and appreciating what our team values as well. So doing exercises, doing uh, having discussions around what you value and what you know. This is not a typical interview question, so we are not asked these kind of questions when we are joining an organization or a department, right? But this is we are now going to be integral, a very close knit part of a team of 5, 6, 10, how many ever people, right? So it is very, very important to have that thing sorted out, because if a unit is working properly, then the organization will kind of is based upon it's on all units, right? So each we are the leaders, we as people managers are really responsible for making sure that our team is feeling value, and what is it that they value, and what we as a leader can provide to them, what is possible for us, or how we can hire also, because when we are hiring, right, we have the opportunity to select people, and then we can perhaps understand what is it that, or how are these people going to be adding to our team's strength, how are these people going to be fitting, because it has to be a mutual win-win relationship, because when we are hiring somebody, right, it is important for us to understand not only what do they desire, but what is it that we can also present to them as an organization or as a team specifically. So it is about understanding that. I have had really good experience in terms of hiring the people with understanding or keeping this lens in mind, Steve, because now I know specifically what is it that I'm looking for in terms of a complementing strength to my team, or what is it that I can bring when I am an addition or a part of a new team, right? It is
Yes.
it just definitely helps a lot if we as individuals, we as leaders are more so aware. And I cannot stress the importance of having this lens as a leader. It is so important, because if our values are not met, if our strengths are not valued, then there is absolutely, there's no fun. And that becomes, then you become not people manager, but people blockers. You just kind of start blocking things, and it just doesn't work that way. So it is important
Ex-
to have.
Exactly, because I've always been a preacher, so to speak, of servant leadership,
Oh yeah.
where you're focusing on how do you make each of your team members better.
Mm-hmm.
Because the idea is if you help them become the best they can be, your team is going to become better. Your team is going to become more successful. And so that requires managers or leaders to invest into their team on a personal level, like understanding their strengths, like learning what are their values. Because, like the example I gave, if the manager had that discussion with my client and my client said, yeah, I'd like to see more recognition, that his manager, his boss, could find ways to do that. It may not be the corporate culture, but he with his team could find ways to do that.
Most certainly. And I think it is our individual responsibility too. So for example, when I got my UMAP and the clarity that we just spoke about earlier that I had, the first thing that I did was go to my manager and tell her, this is what I learned about myself. This is exactly how I want to be. This is what I want to grow in my life. This is exactly the things that I want to do. And this is what I can bring to the table. So that conversation, I remember it was, it was our annual performance and it was all great and stuff like that. I was thinking I could be doing so much more better. And I was not satisfied with whatever was going on. So it is, once you understand what more you can do, then it's just, my manager was actually surprised and so happy, She's like, wow, you are actually working on yourself and it just benefits the organization. It benefits the team. It benefits the people you're working with, everybody.
It definitely, all I know is I wish I knew this stuff 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
When I first started out as a manager, that I would have been so much better today. I mean, there are things I did along the way that obviously line up with servant leadership, and I saw very positive results too. But I could have just done, I think, so much more after what I've learned as a UMAP coach around the talents, around the values, around preferred skills. Everybody has preferred skills, and you may find on your team that one skill to somebody is a burnout skill, but it's a preferred skill to somebody else. And if you have that knowledge, you can either, change up the work in a way that the one who loves doing it gets to do more and they're excited. The one who hates doing it doesn't have to do it, so they're hopefully more happy too, more engaged, because as we know, when employees are engaged at work, they're 7 times more productive or 33% time? I have to go back and look at Gallup's thing, but maybe you remember it off the top of your head. But
how about this? 100 times more happy, 100% happy. I mean, that's what I do. Again, happiness is my key value as well. So I really want to be happy and want people around me to be happy, because if they are not satisfied, if they are not, giving it their best or feeling their best, then what is it? They spend so many hours at work, and it's just very important as managers to have that space and hold that space for our team.
Exactly. I like to refer to it as a growth environment. What are you doing as a leadership to create a growth environment so your employees can flourish? And if they flourish, your company flourishes.
Yeah.
But if I like that word blocker, if you're throwing a bunch of rocks out there, nothing can grow on rocks, or very little, maybe a little moss. But anyway, it gets back to what are you doing as a leader to cultivate that ground to bring about the results that you want.
Right. But again,